All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Cash Cow Conversations. My name is Kristine Reiner. I am the co-founder. I'm one of the co-founders of Cash Cow Co-op. Here is Fora, my little assistant tonight. And our featured guest is Jamie Boley of Mayborn Acres. So welcome, Jamie.
Hello.
I'm so happy to have you on our podcast tonight. How are you doing?
Doing good. Definitely enjoying the weather right now.
It is nice. It is nice from the snow. Um, but so the the reason that Jamie gets to be a featured guest is he is actually one of our producers for 2024 and he's on our directory. So it is our goal to help promote him throughout the year as much as we can and to share the awesome practices and sustainable mentality he has in his business. So Jamie, if you kind of want to get started in how Acres came to be, um, what what gave you the idea to start?
It actually started quite a few years ago when I had some health issues. And I'm one that when I research something, I don't just research it, I research it. And I ultimately ended up changing my diet. And in the process, reviewed all sorts of information on, local foods, homegrown food, and all of that. Figured I have land. I know how to raise chickens. Why am I not raising chickens? So I started raising some chickens for meat as well as for eggs. And then I told some friends. Then they wanted them. And then they told people. And then other people heard. And then it just kept expanding until about every year since then, it seems like I've doubled the number of chickens that I've done. So this year I'm going to end up doing close to 3,000.
Wow. And what year are you on of doing this?
This is probably sixth or seventh.
Wow. What not to interrupt, but what did you start with your first year?
I probably only did like 30 or 40 for myself.
Wow,
And
so
then
that's quite an impressive jump in just a short
mhm.
time span.
And all the growth pains that go with it, the space for brooding, the land to run the tractors on, equipment to process them, time to take care of everything and do it correctly. It's not quite a linear progression. It's a little less than that, but it's definitely something that takes more time the more I do.
Yeah, you're plus do you have other animals on your farm and other things that you
I
grow
do.
or
I have a lot of hobbies that I like to spend time with. Right now, I have pigs and a turkey, single one. His mate kind of ran off with some wild turkeys.
Oh.
And in the past, I have had sheep, llamas, and alpacas. And probably in the next couple of years, I'll get sheep back again after getting things a little more situated with everything that I'm growing.
Yeah, the
And
llamas
of
and
course, like everybody around here, I do have a garden, and I spend a lot of time with that too.
yeah. I was gonna say the llamas and alpacas didn't make the cut.
Well, unfortunately, they were all older and passed away of old age, and I
Oh,
just never replaced them.
yeah.
And with the sheep that I had in the past, as well as the llamas and alpacas, I have to shear them. I don't want to shear anymore. And so when I do get sheep, they're going to be hair sheep, so they can just blow their coat, and I can look at all the fuzz throwing stuck on the fences and in bird nests and stuff like that.
Yeah, better for the environment, you know. Putting
Hmm.
it back in the soil, helping out the birds making nests. That's and you don't have to shear or or fresh or worry about any of that.
Hmm.
And so yeah, you're kind of a jack of all trades, but
See, and I've been in computer tech support. I have a degree in computer science, and I'm not a newbie to computers.
several other things.
Hmm.
That's really impressive. But like out of all of the talents you have, why farming? Like why dedicate your whole life to it, you know?
Probably the main reason is I like to eat. And so if I can produce something that I can eat, it makes me happy. Uh, there's a lot to it. You can do it uh, as you can with so many things. You can do it just superficially and just do a couple here or there, or you can really do a deep dive into it, get into the nutrition, get into the different things that you can do with uh, keeping breeders and trying to improve certain species. And it's not just a simple thing for me. It's a very large, encompassing project that takes a lot of resources, takes a lot of thought and planning. And I enjoy that. I don't like to sit idle. Plus, I get to be outside.
Yeah, and you know, I I have a dream of owning chickens one day. Damon is slowly, I'm wearing him down. But once we get like our house out of town, we'll have chickens, and we'll have the space for taking care of them properly. But a lot can go wrong with chickens, and so to have the amount of of livestock that you have or poultry that you have, do you want to kind of show what experiences you've been through, or maybe what advice you've learned if there's any people who are thinking about getting into poultry production?
I'd say the biggest thing that I would always caution everybody: expect to fail. There will be something that you're not going to be able to account for. A couple years ago, when the derecho came through, it flipped 3 or 4 chicken tractors, and literally the day after they went out to pasture. So those poor birds. And I didn't lose nearly as many as I would have thought, but it could have literally blown everything away. Uh, there's a lot of variables that you have no control over. And so with failure comes knowledge, and everything that I can control that I've planned for, I have backup plans and backup plans for the backup plans. You have to think ahead. And that's really the case with anything. I mean, whether it be chickens or pigs or cows or camels, whatever you choose to raise.
It's yeah, I today I was kind of pondering in the bathroom, like thinking about my almost 2-year old and how my perspective had shifted since being responsible for another life. And I mean, I've taken care of numerous animals, but I'm the youngest. So, like a big issue my sisters would always have is like, oh, Chris, like she's just kind of irresponsible little punk, right? But they always had to take care of me. And they were always concerned about me and like always worried about me. And I just thought that they were being like nosy. But now as a mother, it's like a different form of love that you're able to perceive. And I think, just based off my Facebook groups of chicken keeping I'm in, because I want to learn as much as I can before we actually commit. And
Mm-hmm.
the more posts I see, the more struggles, or like somebody will post like, hey, my roux is doing this. What can I do to kind of combat it? Or we have this infection, or water belly, stuff like that. And so if you are starting, joining these groups will really show you a behind the scenes look into, how how closely you have to watch these little,
Mm-hmm.
crazy little crazy guys, because taking care of something takes so much dedication and so much time and so much resources. You want to make sure that their life is quality. And I know for a fact that you in your process go above and beyond in that. And so can you kind of explain a little bit about how, you handle your poultry differently, and how processing them is a different kind of situation than the chicken you'd find at a store?
I'll back up before I even get the birds for the difference between mine and what's in the store. The birds that are in the store have been selectively bred since, I want to say it was the 50s, with the Chicken of Tomorrow competition. And they were trying to get a bird that would grow fast and big. Well, the typical bird in the store is a Cornish cross, and they'll get up to 5, 6 pounds in 6 to 8 weeks, which near the end, usually for the last half, people that grow them only give them food 12 hours on, 12 hours off. Otherwise, their body can't keep up. Their organs will actually burst because they're growing too fast. The legs will break because they can't support the body because it grew too fast. And I've grown some. I did some at the very beginning and I remembered, yeah, there's a reason I didn't like these things. And so they're very stressed, and that passes on when you eat it. It passes on to us. And so I did a lot of research, probably tried dozens or so different variations, and ended up settling on the Freedom Ranger. It's a much stouter bird, and I'll grow it to about 5 pounds in 12 weeks. And that extra time allows it to grow at a more natural pace. It allows it to actually be a chicken. A lot of Cornish cross, they'll just park themselves at the food dish and just eat. They won't exercise. And again, that goes back to the chicken being able to be a chicken. And so before I even get the birds, that's the kind I'm going after. The post office here is used to me. About every 3 weeks, starting about 5 weeks ago, they're going to get some noisy boxes. And I'll get a call in the morning, I have some birds for you. And I can always tell, even before I totally get in the post office, because I can hear it in the lobby. And they'll bring out the boxes, hopefully of active, chirping little birds. And by then, the brooder, which is kind of like a nursery, is already set up. It has food, it has water, it has bedding, it has heats, it has light, it has everything that they're going to need for the first part of their time here. So I take them home, put them in the brooder. Normally I stand there and watch them, observe them for a while. And 350 cheeping little chicks inside a tin roof enclosure gets really loud. And they will be there, depending on the weather, usually for the first 4 to 6 weeks. Depending on the weather, the door opens, they have plenty of ventilation. I check on them daily, sometimes multiple times, just if I'm walking by, just to poke my head in, see if I need to fill up their water, make some more food. From there, they go out to chicken tractors. And a chicken tractor is a portable chicken coop that gets moved every day. So let's say they go out at 6 weeks. For those last 6 weeks, every day their chicken tractors moved 8 feet. They get access to fresh grass, fresh bugs, fresh dirt, and that fresh air, access to sunlight, and exercise they get being able to be a chicken really makes a huge impact on the health and quality of the bird. When it's windy and rainy, do they get wet? Yep, just like a chicken outside would. The chicken tractor does protect them really well from predators. I was running some along my driveway, and I went out one day to move it, and there was about a 2-inch trough the entire way around the chicken tractor where something had tried to dig in. Didn't make it in. And then I moved it 8 feet. Next day, there was another trough the whole way around. It was that way for 3 days. And then I think the 4th day, they finally decided there's got to be an easier way to eat. I'm going to go find something else. And so they'll spend all their time outside, daily moves, fresh food and water every day. And then for processing, I try and make it as stress-free as possible. And a lot of people, if they ever did anything like that with their grandparents, always describe this incredibly traumatic experience, with a stump and 2 nails and a hatchet, and the chicken demonstrating where the phrase, like a chicken with its head cut off, came from. And just not a real good experience for the animal or the people. And so I try and make mine as stress-free as possible. And people that have had that traumatic experience comment, it's just so much calmer than I've ever done it. And so my goal is to have the birds have one bad day. Yeah. And, when they're dispatched, I try and do it as quickly and efficiently as possible so there's no suffering. And it doesn't stop there. When you raise an animal, to raise it properly and ethically, it's all the way to the plate. And so even after dispatch, with chickens, it would be scalding, plucking, eviscerating, and bagging. All the way through there, I'm still utilizing everything. I'm still honoring the bird and not wasting it or treating it poorly. And it makes a difference.
It really does. It really does. And just the connection you have, with your animals, you can hear it when you talk about it. And it makes, that value that we have in our food, it needs to be talked about and shown and appreciated so that consumers can understand, okay, this is why you shouldn't buy the chicken in the store. This is why bird flus are spreading so bad. This is why, your chicken is looking kind of like shredded netting. It's
A lot of times, pasture poultry producers call the chicken in the grocery store white mush because there's no texture to it. There's no firmness to it. There's no flavor. That's why everything tastes like chicken.
Mm-hmm.
And so one thing I always advise people for the first time they ever have one of my chickens is just cook it. Just roast it in the oven, no salt, no spices, no nothing, and just eat it. And find out what a chicken actually is supposed to taste like.
That high quality, grass fed, and do you guys do organic on your farm?
I don't do organic.
Okay. I mean, organic is such a broad term too, so it's like, but sustainable. You guys are very sustainable in your practice.
Very sustainable.
Yes.
Where one of the spots where I run the birds is back half of a horse pasture, and last year, if we had enough precipitation, that horse would not have been able to keep up. So it would literally be enough to feed a horse. And I like to experiment. I like to check my variables. And one year I had the tractors spaced apart because I figured there might be some runoff, from rain and just dissipation. Well, there wasn't. And so next year, when I looked at the grass, there would be the normal grass, there would be the grass for the chicken tractor, there'd be the normal grass. There was a visible, darker, taller, thicker, lusher green strip everywhere there was a tractor. And even mowing over it, you could tell the difference in the sound through the mower of the density of that grass. And so it puts a lot back into the soil as well.
And I mean, for the capacity that you have to be very careful about that too, of your inputs and outputs and that. And so you've got to constantly just be running around with these chickens, huh?
Well, I have it down to a pretty good science. It really only takes me about 2 minutes per tractor.
Wow. And how many do you have?
This year I'm going to end up with 24 in 2 different locations. And I have a kind of a cycle that I do, and it's pretty much the same every day. It doesn't vary a whole lot, so I've already done a lot of variables and kind of tweak them out. And so what I'll do is I'll mix up food and fill up my water cart. And it's the same thing, same cart. I'll go out, and while one bucket of water is filling, I'll be moving a tractor. Well, the chickens are so used to me, the direction that I'm moving, if I stand at that end, they all crowd to that end because they know I'm going to be putting the food on the ground in front of them. If they were capable, they would push the tractor along themselves just to get to that food. And so I'll move them forward. I'll go on to the next one, move it forward, and just keep them progressing along.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, do you have a spreadsheet? Do you have, like so many different people have different methods, like, but it's just you go with what you know, and they follow because they're so used to it.
It takes about 3 days to train them to food.
Really?
Yeah, which kind of goes against the whole bird brain thing that gets associated with birds, but I do
I
have
was
spreadsheets.
I
I,
was gonna
I,
go there, but I was like, oh no, we don't need to stereotype. um,
I do
I
have
guess.
a lot of spreadsheets that I use. And behind me, if you see these three panels, that's actually a reusable year at a glance calendar.
Oh.
And so I can plan out, the, the birds come in here, they go out to the field here, they get processed here, and show everything so I can see where they're at. Um, all my um, farmers market dates are also on there, so I can kind of keep an idea of everything. And it's a lot easier to set it up here and then put it into my Google Calendar rather than starting there. If I have to move stuff around, it's a lot easier on a whiteboard.
It's, just getting organized like that is such key to consistency, and I'm excited to kind of transition into talking about your CSA programs and your farmers markets.
Mm-hmm.
Before we talk about the CSAs, what farmers markets do you participate in?
This year, I'll be at the Brandon Farmers Market. I have, I think, 7 or 8 dates that I will be there, and I will post those so that everybody can see those. I am using that as a pickup point for the CSA as well. Makes it a lot easier when trying to track everybody down in times. And if somebody can't make it, I will make a separate time for that.
That's very convenient. I've been watching your page because I'm like, well, maybe we'll start eating more chicken now. and maybe, so I was like, I want to buy individual ones before I commit to too many, but your CSA program is really cool. Can you kind of explain what the process is for somebody who wants to sign up?
Sure. CSA is community supported agriculture. It's similar to a subscription. And for my chicken CSA, it is a chicken per month. This year it's June, July, August, September, and October. So it's 1 share equals 5 chickens, 1 per month. And if you get as many shares as your family eats, if you get 3 shares, it's going to be 15 total. A lot of farms, myself included, always do a pre-registration for it early in the year. When I order my birds, I have to order them in January, or I'm not guaranteed that I'm going to get them. And the way it was this year, typically I prefer to get all males. I actually had a couple that I had to drop down to straight run, and they were only going to do all males if they were available. And so I might actually have to have my numbers in place before the end of December so I can make sure I get my birds on time. The other thing that it does for a lot of farms is it helps support the farm until they're actually able to get to farmers markets and do the sales of their products. So it supports the farmer in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I mean, it's far better than going grocery shopping, in my opinion. You know exactly when you're going to meet them, you know what you're going to get, and you know that it's not going to be questionable meat wondering, oh, how long has this been sitting around on a shelf? How long have they kept this in the freezer? And then, it takes out a lot of the uncomfortable questions. And so I just learned that you could choose the amount of shares you got. So that's really cool. It's kind of like, you can gauge. And so during the season, can anybody at any time kind of up their share amount? Or does that
might be an option in the future, but as of now, it would just be whatever I have extra at the farmers market would just be available for purchase. Those that do sign up early do get a discount because it allows me to plan everything nicely.
Yeah, and so having to start into December now, you've really got to have your numbers figured out. Is there a certain reason why you prefer just the males?
They grow bigger.
They grow bigger.
And if I have both males and females in the same chicken tractor, processing might have to be staggered. So I might have to do some of them because they're the right size 1 weekend, and then 2 weekends, 3 weekends later, I might have to do the remainder. So from a planning aspect, if you can limit your variables, it's always a nicer thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, so I guess I don't, do you normally have any hens then?
Yeah, the it's not 100% accurate when they send all males.
Right.
Sometimes there's a couple hens in there.
I was gonna say, do you guys partake in any egg production, or do you more so just kind of do that for yourselves?
I just do the eggs for myself. There's a lot
Mhm.
of good egg vendors around, and that's not something that I'm passionate about doing. So I'll leave that to them.
Yeah, I love when I see on social media free range eggs are found all over places. It's
Hmm.
just
Especially this time of year as everyone's hens start laying in earnest.
yeah. Well, I mean, you have accomplished quite a bit in transitioning from, a full-time career to full farmer. And so that's really, you know, amazing to do and to commit to. And you've also done a little bit of community work at a legislative
Hmm.
level. Can you explain that a little bit and where that led you?
Sure. So back in February, with the National Family Farm Coalition, they hosted a fly-in to talk to a number of legislators about the Farm Bill. And for everybody that was in, we were actually broken down into multiple groups, kind of based on uh, needs as well as experience. And the one I was pulled in on was the food sovereignty on farm slaughter group. And some of the changes that we wanted to make were more in verbiage initially. For instance, the verbiage for, and poultry's its own thing. Red meat is a different thing. This was more on the red meat side of things. So, for instance, any of my pigs I can grow, process myself, and eat it. Nobody has any issue with that. But the USDA doesn't like it if you get a pig from me, I process it and give it to you. They want it to go through a USDA inspected facility. And there's kind of a way around that where I can take it to a butcher who's not USDA certified. You pay the butcher, but you pay me for the animal. But if you wanted me to process it, then there's currently no methodology for that. And so part of it was the verbiage that it shifts to the USDA for burden of proof, and to change the wording so that it's not the person who raises it as being the only one that can consume that, but you could purchase the animal from me and then I could process it and give it to you. And so that was the focus of the group that I was in, and it was an amazing experience. Uh, I think my group, we went to, I think, 15 offices total, and ours was a large enough group that sometimes we could divide and conquer. And so while we were over here, they were over there. And I mean, we had meetings with legislators and aides. You know, some of them were in the Supreme Court building. Some of them, we got to walk all around there and see it all. And I think I went through the metal detector about 20 times. And after the second time, I walked through, pointed down, steel toe boots. They wind around my boots, and then I put everything back in my pocket, put my belt on again, and continue on.
DC is it's one of my favorite cities that I've ever visited. If you haven't been there, you have to go there. They have so many great free museums and libraries.
Mm-hmm.
Get a library card at the Library of Congress. It's very, very cool. If ever you're in DC, check all this stuff out because it's an experience.
On our way back to the hotel one time from Capitol building, uh, I don't remember the name of it, but it was this big, massive greenhouse that was pretty much like walking into the tropics. My glasses fogged over immediately. I had to take my head wrap off and my flannel off because it was that warm. And so we went around there for the last 15 minutes before they closed.
That, that is really awesome. It was just like, was it like a business greenhouse or was it like an urban ag initiative thing?
No, it was a government thing.
Oh, wow. That is cool.
They had part of it. They had medicinal plants. They had a ton of orchids. They had palm trees. They had a lot of stuff that we don't have here in the Midwest. And I'm looking at some of this, wondering what the heck is this thing?
That's very cool. And just to be able to have a say in that legislative process instead of just letting people who really don't know the experience make the decisions. That's very cool.
It was, and it was interesting for me to learn the process of a lot of these things because that's not something I normally dive into. And it's the portion that we were working on has stalled a little bit. And so we're actually going to shift gears. And they actually just reached out to me about this yesterday. And so once I get all the legislative context for here in South Dakota that I need, I'll be writing them, calling them, emailing them, and asking everybody else to do the same.
It's the best way to get anything pushed through is community support and being the loudest in that room. Politics is something that I see so important, but they're also so frustrating at times because
Exactly.
you can have your policy checks in mark, like you can have everything lined up, and then a lobbyist comes by or one person votes differently because they work with whoever and so ever. It can be defeating, but it's still such important work and so needed, and to protect the rights of producers, and share the knowledge. That's really the most important thing we can do, is share the knowledge so people understand the processes.
Exactly.
So
Some of
thank
the
you.
other groups, there was one on purchasing land. There was MCOOL, which is mandatory country of origin labeling. I'm drawing a blank on the rest. But there was a lot of different topics covered by a lot of different people. And there were a couple of us here from South Dakota. There was some from Vermont, from Maine, from Alaska, from Oregon. I mean, there were a lot of people from all over echoing the same needs and changes. And so end game for on-farm processing is that I could pretty much process anything I want and sell it to whoever I wanted. Would be the ultimate end game in terms of policy for that.
Yes, absolutely. Oof. Do you feel like that is within range, or do you think that that will take some time to accomplish?
Somewhere in between. I think it'll take some time, but hopefully it's not as long as the wheels seem to turn. Hopefully it's sooner rather than later.
Well, and then it comes down to elections and politics things as well, and so it's a little bit maddening. You've
It's
got to have
very.
patience, right? But no, that's very cool. How did you get connected with that process?
I'm part of Dakota Rural Action here in South Dakota, and they're a member of National Family Farm Coalition. And so when they were looking for people, I was asked.
That's so cool that we have that local resource where real producers can connect to policymakers by a South Dakota supportive organization. That's so cool. We have a lot more work to do, but I mean,
Yes.
just to be proud of the fact that we're putting people who are informed like you, who care, who have the knowledge in front of others who need that knowledge. And so thank you again for sharing that.
You're welcome. I always tell people it's not hard to get me to talk about my passions. It's hard to get me to shut up.
It's so true though. It's good that you have passion though, because you're mundane, and we were talking earlier about there was cybersecurity, but what was the other profession you were in?
Originally, I was electrical engineering before I went to computer science.
Yeah,
So computer science is my first degree.
that was just mind numbing to you, wasn't it?
Sitting in a desk programming all day is not my cup of tea.
Yeah, you seem like a more sociable person. You seem like you want to be around people and have conversations, whereas most computer developers I've met are not that way.
Mm-hmm. I worked with a group of stereotypical computer geeks, and it was interesting.
Yes, yes. The personalities are interesting. It's,
Mm-hmm.
switching, especially switching from career to like agriculture community.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I feel like I've gone from like America's fast pace to like island time. you know, like people understand why you support things you support. People care about, like your sourdough starters. People, they have connections that they share. And so I do want to touch upon just the resources you've been able to utilize, if there are any, in your operation, maybe getting started, or maybe if you found any grants that have been helpful um, in building up production, or anything you want to share.
The internet is full of resources, some of them better than others. A lot of them just are doing the same thing as a lot of other people. There are a number of books on pasture poultry production. And the biggest caveat I would say for that, and actually, when I was speaking on Saturday, I brought this up. With anything, there's a phrase I like: absorb what is useful, disregard what is useless, and add what is uniquely your own. So while it might tell you exactly step by step what to do, that's what works for them for where they're at. So you always have to adjust it for what you're doing. There's there are a lot of grants out there for a lot of different things, and unfortunately, a lot of the ones I've looked at recently don't apply to meat, and so that kind of mixes a lot with the chickens. But two of the products I'm looking at expanding into include quail and rabbit, and quail eggs aren't meat. And so I can look at some of these grants with the quail eggs in mind.
That is tricky. There's always like those little catches you have to make sure you qualify for. I would absolutely always check the eligibility requirements before you get your plan and
Absolutely.
resources figured out, because sometimes writing, like, it can take months,
Yes.
to write a grant. And then when you are applying for grants, to make sure, recently what happened to us is our account, it lapsed through sams.gov or something. So we were active, but now we're not active. And so that actually took us out of the running for applying for a grant that we were very sorry. My son and my husband are downstairs and I just heard a loud thunk. Everybody's okay, no tears. But to just those little things really can, you're gonna have the best grant written ever. But if you have the right logins and the right authorized users, it can really hinder you. But it is tough that there are not a lot of options for meat. I'm
There
hoping
are a
that
few through SARE and through FACT. FACT is specifically kind of geared towards the ethical raising of animals. The USDA has a lot of different grants. Unfortunately, what is difficult with a lot of those is they require matching funds. So if you want to build $100,000 building, they might give you 50,000, but you have to match 50,000, which for a lot of people that are trying to build their infrastructure, if they had that to begin with, they would already be doing it, or at least be started on it. So it's challenging.
Yeah, definitely.
I also want to point out I'm down to 2%. So if I suddenly disappear, my phone died.
All right. Okay. My last question then. I wanted to talk to you about the event on Saturday. Can you just give us a quick explanation about what it was, and then a recap about how it went?
Sure. It was a hands-on workshop out at Venner Farm in I think they're actually in Fort Pierre.
Mhm.
And there were three of us speaking. One gentleman spoke on composting, and he also talked about a hugelkultur mound, which
Oh,
some people are familiar with. If you're in permaculture, you've seen them. It's basically where you take a stack of wood, put compost and dirt on it, and use that kind of as a nutrient source as well as a sponge for water. And it's kind of cool. I have them already built here. I have them oriented east-west, and so the north side and the south side are their own little microclimates. Another gentleman spoke about biochar and how to make it, what it can do, and how you can amend that. And then I spent quite a bit of time in manufacturing and got exposed and went through a lot of stuff with lean manufacturing. And the point of lean manufacturing is to reduce waste. And I use those principles quite often in my operation. And so I spoke about three of the basic tools within lean that somebody can use to minimize waste within their operation.
very cool. Well, one day when you're not on 2%, and hopefully we can get you back on our podcast, we can delve.
Absolutely. I'll make sure it's at 100% next time.
You're totally fine. Yeah, we could lean into that. Lean into lean management. But
Don't waste any time.
I want to thank you for your time today, Jamie. It's been so informative, and hopefully our viewers will be reaching out to subscribe to your CSAs and to support you at the Brandon's Farmers Market this summer.
Thank you, and absolutely. And if anybody ever has questions about it, I have lots of means of contact.
Yeah, you're a very knowledgeable guy with a very big network. So if you're just starting, if you're interested in chickens, you want to learn anything from Jamie, reach out to him. He is such a personable, welcoming guy. I'm just thankful to know you. Like, it's very cool. So I'm gonna go here, but thank you for your time.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Bye, Jamie.
Bye.